July meeting. Before we call roll or anything else, first person I'd like to welcome back Bryce. Haven't been down here with us, and we're just thrilled to have you back in the chair here and just welcoming back everybody. All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Adams. Senator Douglas.
Present.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon.
Here.
Senator Howe. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Senator Nemus.
Present.
Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Thomas.
Here.
Representative Banta.
Here.
Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Callaway.
Present.
Representative Kleins.
Here.
Representative Dixon.
Here.
Representative Pfister.
Here.
Representative Flannery. Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Heverin. Representative Herron. Representative Huff.
Here.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Kulkarni. Representative Meredith. Representative Palumbo. Representative Pratt.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Representative Timoney.
Here.
Co-Chair Schickel.
Present.
Chairman Cook.
Here. Okay, let's start off with approval of the June 22nd meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Let's get right into it. We're going to start off with alcohol delivery and license quota. So, Ms. Stiglitz, if you'll approach the table and you and your guest could please introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Cook. My name is Shannon Stiglitz. I'm the Senior Vice President for Government Affairs for the Kentucky Retail Federation.
Good morning. My name is Ahmed Young. I lead Public and Government Affairs for Walmart in this region.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Our first issue on the agenda is the issue of alcohol delivery by retailers. We wanted to bring this forth because twofold. As you can imagine, alcohol delivery proliferated during the global pandemic. As I know you're aware, since Cocktails to Go was passed in 2021. And through those experiences, what we have learned and some of the concerns that have been raised by retailers along with their delivery partners is the issue of a physical display of signage on the outside of the vehicle along with the licensee's license number. And so it is a twofold concern. One is retailers raise the concern about a safety issue for the driver, sort of acknowledging that there's alcohol in this vehicle, and does that increase the likelihood of theft? And secondly, the issue of the logistics of how retailers are utilizing delivery partners to deliver alcohol to the consumer. And so when a third-party delivery driver is used, many times those folks drive for multiple licensees, and the requirement that they physically display the licensee name and the license number becomes complicated in the sense that they are constantly changing those signs and where they have to be located on the vehicle. For the license number, it requires a decal physically stuck to the car. And so we are here to request some statutory changes, and we are working with, we want to work with you and all of our alcohol partners to ensure that we are preparing the best consensus for a statute. We do have a precedent for not requiring signage. Provided to you in your packet is a KRS 2, if you look at the very last page, 243081. subsection 4 states, this is the allowing restaurants and their delivery partners to deliver cocktails to go, essentially, as I think we sort of informally called the statute. And it just says, for the purposes of this section, vehicles used for delivery shall be exempt from displaying the name and license number of the retail licensee selling the alcoholic beverages being delivered. So I just wanted to provide that as an example. I know that you like us to have these issues vetted. And so a couple of things, and I'm going to let Ahmed speak about the ability to digitally display a license within the vehicle by the driver in a moment. But we have talked to others in the alcohol industry, and some of the issues that have been raised potentially are ensuring a chain of custody. Currently, delivery network companies are getting a transporter's license, so they should be, and that chain of custody should be ensured. But if there is another way to work that out, we're more than happy to work on that. And also the issue of ensuring that the IDs are checked. Of course, the statute says you can't sell alcohol to anyone under the age of 21, and that the packages have to be marked that they're alcohol and over the age of 21 according to the transporter's license. And so we see that as the law now, but if that needs to be clarified, we're more than happy to work on that. So I will allow Ahmed to
You're
speak.
too kind. Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, all. Again, my name is Ahmed Young, and I'm honored to be here with you this morning. 3 words I want to make sure that I drill home this morning: safe, secure, and transparent. That is our top priority, to ensure that when our drivers are in the streets delivering food, delivering groceries, they're doing it safely, securely, and in a transparent way that is in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That is our priority, and our goal is to ensure that we're aligning with those priorities and executing with excellence. And this recommendation that we're bringing forth this morning centers around those 3 pillars. And ultimately, when it comes to delivery of alcohol, we want to make sure that, A, we're ensuring that it's going to the right place by the right people, that is in accordance with the law of this Commonwealth, and also thinking through how do we ultimately execute with fidelity. A good example of that is ensuring that our Spark delivery drivers, which is our third-party platform, which allows us to deliver not only from Walmart, but also from other retailers as well, and ensuring that when those drivers pick up from those locations, they're able to have the right identification, the right license name, and the right license number for that particular retailer or for that establishment. They're able to pull that up on a digital device and show that in a very transparent, quick way if they're requested to do so, and execute, and then move on to their desired location. So that's what we're essentially offering for consideration.
Okay, any questions on that subject, and then we'll let them go into the license quota if there aren't any. Any questions? Okay, pretty simple. Let's go to license quota.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the chairman allowing us to be a late addition on this issue, as it has been a developing issue for retailers in Lexington. We have a situation where there are not an adequate number of quota retail package licenses for those who have applied for licenses. I know that a quota retail package issue can be a sensitive one. I want to be clear that we are not here to request that the quota be removed in statute, but we did provide you with a list of the licensees in Lexington to show you that as the ability for more retailers, restaurants, and other entities to get a quota retail package license has grown, it's put more demand on the need for quota retail package licenses. And so there are many questions that we've had to ask very quickly about this situation. And in your packet, we have provided you, it is the one pager that, thank you, why did I lose it? That talks about, if you flip over to KRS 241069, there is a process in place, so we thought where a city could request an increase in the number of quota retail package licenses if certain conditions allowed. Unfortunately, what we did not understand, but have come to learn through working with the Department for Alcoholic Beverage Control, is that the only cities with quotas are those that are located in dry counties. And so Lexington, because it is merged government, is sort of in this quandary. We want to be clear, though, that, and so we talked with the Kentucky League of Cities, who is amenable and willing to work with us to amend that part of the statute to allow for any city, county, or merged government to request an increase in the quota retail licenses. We do think we are very supportive of all of those entities being able to expand their opportunities to retail. Many of them are our members, and so we want to continue to push for opportunities to retail. We also see the number of 2,300, one license per 2,300 was established based on what we think of as traditional quota retail package licensees. We know that Lexington is going to get more retailers who are going to want these licenses. And so we also know that this is not going to be a problem that is just unique to the city of Lexington. And we know that, and this demand is because of, we've got barrel picks and the ability for flower shops to do flowers and champagne. And again, these are all excellent opportunities that we want to protect. We just want to find a solution in working with you and working with all of the others in the alcohol industry, which we have prepared to do. I think, we probably gave a few panic attacks when they saw quota retail package license on the agenda, but we did speak with them, and we've raised the promise that we would work with the legislature and we would work with all parties to ensure that we could come to a resolution. And so we have begun that process. And that is the issue.
Okay, we have one question. Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looks like to me a common sense approach to this would be, this is package retail license. When I think of a package retail license, I think of a liquor store or a store that the primary function is to sell alcohol. We should redefine like a flower shop who's getting a package license. We should redefine what a package license is and who can get them. It needs to be somebody that's their primary business is to sell alcohol. And somebody else, there's other licenses available to these folks. And if there's not, we need to create one, but we should not do away with our quota by somebody who's really not in the alcohol business. It's just a sideline. That would be a common sense approach that wouldn't change a whole lot of things. So, and that would help Lexington and probably some other areas also.
Chairman Cook, if I may respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Higdon, we agree with you that there are a multitude of ways to correct that. That would be a very simple one. A de minimis license for those folks where it is an ancillary business, that these numbers were created for, as you said, traditional retail package, what we think of as a liquor store. And so if that is the road the General Assembly wants to go down, along with, I think the cities would like to fix the city requesting statute, we're open to all options. We wanted to bring the issue to you today so it could be vetted. And we understand that you want a consensus reached before we come to you in January, and we are committed to doing that.
Senator Higdon, follow up.
Yes, thank you. And I don't remember the bill number, Paul Hornback's bill, that allowed this very thing for those who are not in, that's not their primary business, to allow them to sell alcohol or bourbon, whatnot. So there's a solution. We just need to get it taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks for your testimony this morning. Thank you, sir, for being here, Shannon. And let's move on. We're going to go to land surveyors. While they're working their way up to the table, we do have groups to talk on this as well after the initial speakers. Just a quick rehash. Bill was filed last year. Anyway, through different reasons, we put it aside. We hit Control-Alt-Delete on it. We're starting over. So we're going to talk about land surveyors and seeming shortage. That I feel a lot of us have a problem, getting a land surveyor accessible to us. So we're happy you guys are here with us today, and look forward to your testimony. So if you please introduce yourselves for the record, and we'll let you start.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I'm Kyle Elliott. I'm the Executive Director of the Board of Licensure for Engineers and Surveyors.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Don Pettigo, professional. I'm Don Pettigo, professional surveyor, chairman of the. Now? All right. Sorry. I'm Don Pettigo. I'm a professional surveyor. I'm also the chairman of the board for the Kentucky Board of Licensure for Engineers and Surveyors. Thank you.
My name is Ben Shinneberry. I'm a licensed surveyor here in Kentucky and representing the Kentucky Professional Association.
All right, gentlemen, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, co-chairs Cook and Schickel, for allowing us to testify today, and the other committee members. So the Kentucky State Board of Licensure for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors was created by an act of the General Assembly in 1938 to protect the health, safety, and welfare, at the time by licensing and regulating engineers. Professional land surveyors were added to the board's charge in 1966. Since then, the board has licensed almost 4,600 professional land surveyors. A brief history of the 4-year degree requirement. In the early 2000s, the Board of Licensure, along with the Kentucky Association of Professional Surveyors, the Kentucky Society of Professional Engineers, and the American Council of Engineering Companies began the process of trying to move away from an experience-only route to becoming a surveyor. Research was done by those groups, and a study was conducted, and there was a lot of debate. In 2005, by another act of the General Assembly, this state began requiring a 4-year degree to become a licensed surveyor. At the time, Kentucky was decades behind other states, even our neighboring states. Some of those had enacted the similar legislation in the 1970s and the 1980s. At the time, a 6-year sunset period was provided so that those that had begun the experience-only route could still become licensed, and that sunset period ended in June of 2011. The Board of Licensure and the 3 professional societies knew there would be a downward trend in surveying licensing, and we were told it would be about a 10-year period. Earlier than that, in 2019, surveying licensing in Kentucky began an upward trend that continues to this day. In 2005, when the 4-year degree requirement became law, Kentucky had 1,031 licensed surveyors. In 2011, when the sunset period ended for the experience-only route, Kentucky had 956 surveyors. Today, we have 1,442 licensed surveyors. That's an almost 40% increase from 2005 and a 66% increase since 2011. But we still do need more licensed surveyors in the state. So far this year, Kentucky has 34 individuals registered to take the first of the national surveying exams. It's called the Fundamentals of Surveying. And we have 24 individuals registered to take the Principles and Practice of Surveying exam, the second national. That's 58 Kentuckians that live in this state who are well on their way to becoming licensed surveyors. 58 individuals who have already met their requirements of the 4-year degree. So why a 4-year degree instead of a 2-year degree? A 4-year degree in surveying and a 2-year degree in surveying still offer the same surveying core competencies. A 2-year degree focuses on training practitioners for an industry standard and not much more because of the 2-year constraint. A 4-year degree program prepares graduates for professional licensure in a much broader way. The university experience includes much deeper treatment of the soft skills like communication, professional responsibility and ethics, societal awareness, business and financial consequences of land surveying practice, and the awareness for the need of lifelong learning. These additional skills will amplify the impact of the surveying core competencies and differentiates the land surveying professional from the technician. Since Kentucky moved to the 4-year degree requirements for land surveying licensing, our pass rates on both the national fundamentals and principles and practice surveying exams have more than doubled. Prior to the degree requirement, we had pass rates in Kentucky in the 30 to 40% pass range. We currently have pass rates in the 70 to 80% pass rate. That's more than a doubling. This is directly attributed to the 4-year degree requirement. Our licensed land surveying numbers are up and increasing. Our surveying exam registrations are up, and the pass rates are doubled. For these reasons, the Kentucky State Board of Licensure for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors is opposed to regressing back to a 2-year degree requirement. Thank you.
Okay, in just a second, I'm going to ask John to come up. I know he's signed up to speak as well on this. And what kicked this all off, if you're a farmer, Bourbon County, and you're going to get a fence line, build a new fence, and you want to have it surveyed, you're looking at quite a long wait and quite expensive to get that done. And that's kind of what spurred this. And it's not just me. There's plenty of people that can speak to this. But if you guys want to stay at the table, because I anticipate probably having some questions after this. John, you want to come on up, and if you guys can make some room for him and let him speak a little bit. And we're all friends here, and we'll keep moving.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee members. I'm John Mark Hack. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Thoroughbred, an engineering design and construction management firm based in Lexington. We have offices in Shelbyville and London as well. I want to start by saying that as an employer of professional land surveyors, we have no interest in anything that would denigrate the profession. In fact, we believe that the greatest threat to the profession is a lack of folks entering the profession. I'm encouraged by the numbers that Mr. Elliott just reported, but I will suggest to you that the state is still short on professional land surveyors. We're interested in flexibility in land surveyor licensure because of the lack of professionals entering the licensure process. And I want to just quickly tell you what steps we've taken in the recent past to address our concerns. In November of 2021, we met with the president, before we met with anybody else, we met with the president of the Kentucky Association of Professional Surveyors to raise our concerns to him, and offered our services in helping to market entry into the profession. In September of 2022, we met with Mr. Elliott and Mr. Pettigo and other members of the state board and offered our concerns to him. That was after Representative Cook, Chairman Cook, had filed a bill in the 2022 session to address the shortage by creating an alternate pathway. We had an interim committee meeting that many of you will recall in 2022 to get the conversation going. And in the absence of other ideas to expand what is truly a noble and necessary profession, just as an aside, nothing can happen in land development without the contributions of professional surveyors. Farm surveys can't happen. Fencing in backyards for dogs can't happen. Large-scale economic development projects can't happen. This is a critical profession to the future of the Commonwealth. But in the absence of other ideas, we pressed on with our idea to offer an alternative path to licensure so that those students who are either not interested in a 4-year college degree or simply find it unaffordable could have a pathway to entering the profession. We worked with Representative Wade Williams in the 2023 session, and Representative Williams' bill passed out of the House Licensing and Occupations Committee on an 18-0 vote, and we didn't hear any issues during that committee hearing. And I just want to reiterate that what we were proposing and what we support is an option, an additional pathway, not one that would replace the current pathway, but an option for young women and men who have an interest in this noble profession to enter into it without what many see as a burden of a four-year college degree. Again, we have no interest in doing anything but promoting the profession. And we look forward to working with you, Chairman Cook, and with Mr. Elliott, Mr. Pettigo, and the State Board as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Senator Nemes.
Yes. You say that why do you need to pass with a 2-year or 4-year or 8-year? Sure, the pass rate would be better the longer you go to school, but why is there a need for a 4-year? And how about the number that are passing? Another thing is, what does a surveyor need? Why does a surveyor need soft skills, etc., if they can properly survey and produce a report?
I can answer that question. I think the education provides for a competent professional. It does provide for technical abilities, and any industry now has a very specific technical knowledge base. Surveying is not the same as 20 years ago when I started in the industry. Our equipment that we're using now is precise. All of it is run by software and hardware that provides for precise measurement, and not that a 2-year degree student could understand and learn that, but it goes beyond just a typical skills training.
So what you're saying is if someone takes a 2-year class and passes the test, that they're still not qualified?
The understanding and the technical knowledge, in my opinion, needs to be there in a 4-year degree. Also, the business competency, so understanding professional contracting, so writing contracts, the need for liability insurance, and we have a lot of surveyors in Kentucky now that are one-man surveying licensees that are doing surveys, may not have a contract set, may not be insured for their work. And for our new surveyors joining the professionalism, they need to know this is how it is to be a professional surveyor within the state.
So surveyors write contracts and they're unable to do it with a 2-year degree?
No, they are able to do it with a 2-year degree, but those classes in business administration are generally not included within just a 2-year skills course.
I would like for, I forget your name to respond to that. Yes, the businessman, yes.
Senator Nemes, would you just repeat the question just so I'm clear?
My question was, why do you need a 4-year degree if a guy with a 2-year degree can pass the test? Maybe the test isn't good enough. And why do you need soft skills to survey my property?
Well, I want to state for the record, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nemes, that I'm not a professional land surveyor like Mr. Shinneberry and Mr. Pettigo. What I will say, and are you professional? Are you PLS? And Mr. Elliott, I'm sorry. But what I will say is that the legislative alternative that we offered in the 2023 session included a 6-year apprenticeship in addition to the 2-year college requirement. So to the extent that graduates are able to work under qualified professional land surveyors like these three gentlemen, it would seem to me that the kind of skill sets that Mr. Shinneberry just mentioned could be attainable in the context of that apprenticeship by working with professional licensed surveyors.
You got a follow-up, Senator Neiman? You finished? You good? Okay. All right, thank you. Let's go Representative Dixon.
Yes, the question I have is kind of pertains to the bill that was in question last year, but to get some perspective on kind of where you guys are coming from on the work-based skills and that transferring into, and it kind of, Senator Nemus kind of had this in his question, but a more direct is, can you kind of explain to us in the committee how if an individual, say a high school student, comes out of high school and starts working for a surveyor or a construction company that has surveyors and works under them in a type of apprenticeship that the gentleman just stated, gaining those professional skills, those soft skills, those skills that sometimes colleges can't provide, that real world experience that they get with that professional surveyor, then taking that course along the way and then being able to pass the test. Can you kind of explain to the committee how that model would not enhance, the skills and how that surveyor would then, turn out in the end?
If I could address that, Representative Dixon. Currently, all surveyors have to have the 4-year degree, and they also have to have 4 years of experience or an apprenticeship under a licensed surveyor. I became licensed at a time where a degree was not required. I actually went back later and obtained my degree after I had my license. Surveyors are constantly called upon to speak in front of legislative committees, planning commissions, adjustment boards, zoning adjustment boards, and things like that, where they need to have the ability to communicate verbally and a lot of times in writing. Those skills can certainly be obtained through the experience, the 6-year requirement that they're proposing or the 4-year requirement that we currently have, but it's not a given that they will be. It depends on who you're working for and what their experience is. With the 4-year degree, you're going to get that base knowledge, the requirements for the public speaking, communications, business, and just to address Senator Nemus's question earlier, for 19 years I was the board investigator, and almost every one of the board's complaints was against licensed land surveyors, and it rarely came down to an issue of whether they could survey properly or not. It was how they handled their business with their clients or their neighbors, the client's neighbors, billing and things like that. It was just poor communication and poor business practices. All of them know how to survey. It's some of the other stuff that they don't get from their experience.
I think it would, or I disagree with the comment that a 4-year degree would guarantee that you're a better public speaker. I don't think you need a 4-year degree to become a better public speaker. You got to follow
I
it
acknowledge
up,
it.
Dixon.
Just a quick follow up. I kind of go with that with Chairman Cook. I think where you find yourself throughout your career and those things. College is a great thing, and I think that sometimes that knowledge you obtain from that real world experience can pay off. And I kind of rebuttal that comment too. I'm an individual who doesn't have a 4-year degree, but have found myself sitting in this seat. So,
all right, let's go, Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess usually when we run into these type of issues, I like to ask, what do they do? What's the requirements in Tennessee, Indiana, and Ohio? Are they the same, or they allow for a 2-year degree for those people in those states to practice?
So, Senator Higdon, currently Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio require a 4-year degree. Missouri does, but their degree has to be specific to a Missouri school. I don't understand that. West Virginia does not. No degree. It's just experience. And Tennessee is currently at an experience-only route. They had a degree requirement. They dropped back for a few years, and they're coming back to the degree maybe this year or next year.
Do we allow out-of-state surveyors to practice in Kentucky?
Only with a Kentucky license. And we have a reciprocity or endorsement process where they can get a Kentucky license.
How many states do we have reciprocity with?
It's not a true reciprocity. We call it endorsement comity. But what we do is we look at the requirements that Kentucky had on the date they had or obtained their original license, and if they meet our requirements at that time, then they can obtain a license.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go Senator Howell.
Thank you. Most of my question has been addressed. I just want to follow up on a couple of issues. First of all, Don, good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, sir.
And kind of following up on this on this apprenticeship situation, there have been a lot of changes in the industry over the years, from how we go about walking the field with pins and everything to some of the technology used now. Has that negated some of the effectiveness, in your opinion, of the apprenticeship as far as teaching the proper surveying methods and ability to round out as a surveyor? Or are apprenticeships different now?
I can speak to that. Thank you for the question, Senator Howell. In my own personal practice, I have 3 LSITs, that's the land surveyor in training, that have worked for me and gained their land surveyor in training portion of their licensure. They're moving on to gain their license here in the next couple of years. We are teaching them and mentoring them in all the different aspects, but also providing the training for the new technology. So apprenticeship is happening within surveyors that see it as a priority for hiring students that are interested in professional licensure track. We also provide for tuition assistance. So I have 3 students currently that are taking classes. They're not LSITs yet, but they're working right now. Some of their work experience goes toward their licensure need, and they're going back to get the classes. We hold that as a priority because we know that an educated professional is going to be more well-rounded. We also provide them the experience in the field and in the office before they get their license.
Kind of a follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me. I think one of you touched on this earlier about the public speaking. Do you actually have classes in a 4-year degree program that public speaking or speaking to planning and zoning 105 or something like that? You know, one of the things that I think frustrate a lot of us is we spend all this time in college and the expense that it goes, and there isn't a lot of real world application preparation. Do y'all have? You're telling me that you actually have classes like that?
So we do not have speaking to a planning commission 101.
Well, that's a bad that's a bad example, because I'm not too sure that anybody's figured out how to communicate with most planning.
There are for any 4-year degree requirement these days, public speaking is one of the first classes you have to take for any 4-year degree.
Okay, thank you. But there's nothing specific as to the industry.
No.
Because I'll be honest with you, I deal with you guys a lot, and sometimes I think we're talking in 2 different languages. So there isn't anything to kind of bridge that gap. Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're going to go. We got 3 more signed up to speak, and then we're going to move on. So let's go. We got Representative Meredith, Senator Douglas, and then Representative Bratcher. So Representative Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much like Representative Cook, the chair of this committee, said, I'm from one of those counties where it's pretty hard to get a land surveyor. It takes generally 6 to 8 weeks at the shortest time period from the initial discussion, contracting, to actually get services provided to our customers in those communities like that. And I want to be clear, and this is a clarification question. So you're saying that in the 2-year and the 4-year degree, the core competency for surveying is the same curriculum?
Yeah, so Representative, Kentucky only requires 24 hours in the core surveying courses. Most of the 4-year degree graduates will have 30 plus hours in surveying, but a 2-year program could have 24, our minimum requirement.
Okay.
And if I could just address the shortage of surveyors, much like the alcohol sales, the pandemic was friendly to land surveying. People decided while they were sitting at home on their back patios during the pandemic that they wanted to build fences or put in pools or whatever, and surveying really became busy during the pandemic.
Well, and I would just respond. We had the problem long before the pandemic. We still have the problem after the pandemic. Obviously, there was probably a little bit of a blip on the radar that it was a little bit more difficult during that time, but it wasn't directly related to the pandemic. It was going on long before that. But I go back to the whole discussion that Representative Dixon brought forward, and I do have a 4-year college degree. But I would argue that I have learned more through the time that I have spent in my career about being professional and speaking to people and being able to run the business side of things than I did during my college courses of just trying to teach you how to do those things. And I think it's pretty important that we talk about that in here, because we allow people to start businesses in all types of different professions every day with no college curriculum whatsoever. And so if we're talking about the core curriculum being relatively the same, there are business people every day that start a business that don't necessarily know exactly how to read a contract or how to write one. There are people every day that don't know how to speak in front of a different group, and we allow for that. So I just think in a profession where we know there's a shortage of folks out there and we have long wait times to serve our constituents in that profession, I think we have to look at alternative methods.
Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that there is pressure to have more access to surveyors. This is not my my area. I'm a physician, but I do understand the same thing occurs in medicine. Number one. Number two, and I do have a question that I'll get to. I understand that we're trying to sort of discern whether or not some people would argue technicians versus someone who's doing a standardized, getting a standardized linear educational process. I mean, those are really the things on the table. My question here is there some continuing education that is required or some retesting that's required over time? And this is just an education process for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Douglas, all of our licensees, both engineers and land surveyors, are required to obtain hours each year in continuing professional development. Surveying continuing education is 8 hours per year, and the engineering is 15 hours per year.
Okay, Representative Kleins, you have the last question, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Cook. I just think it's a very challenging time to say a 4-year degree is your default. Pathways, credentials, experience. So I actually like the bill because it presented some flexibility in achieving the license. I can't speak to it, how good it was as a surveyor or someone in the surveying business, but I would like to hear something other than just, you need a 4-year degree, you need a 4-year degree. Because I think it's a wonderful opportunity for you to come up with a different kind of pathway or a hybrid pathway to get some more surveyors out into the field. So just a statement, not a question. Thank you.
I think that's a good statement to wrap this up. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here. We've got a lot of work to do on this. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to veterinary and allied health. Senator Webb, if you'll bring your guest up and get seated. Last year, we passed a we updated, made the Modern Veterinary Practice Act. Pretty hefty undertaking, took a lot of work to get that through. Part of what was not addressed in that was our allied professionals. So this deals not only equine dentist, but you can include chiropractors, massage therapists, et cetera. And we had the promise that we were going to keep investigating, keep working with our allied health professionals. And Senator Webb here was with one of them, which is the equine dental. And if you could introduce yourself for the record and all your guests, and we'll let you begin. And we do have some people here to follow up. So thank you.
Senator Robin Webb, 18th District. And I have two individuals here with me today. I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Justin Talop. I'm from Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. I'm an equine dental provider, a board member of the International Association of Equine Dentistry, and I serve on the Government Relations Chair.
And I'm Wayne Needham. I'm from Canyon, Texas, president of the International Association of Equine Dentistry, and have the Equine Dental School of Texas. I also run and lecture there.
Great, floor is yours.
Thank you. I also have folks that are here. Walter Moskowitz from Louisville, Jim Kostra from Bowling Green, Bart Sissel from Eminence, Haley Mullins from Corbin, and a couple other folks trickled in from Paint Lick. and from Lawrenceburg. So we're well represented with the demographic, and I guess Representative Flannery, I'm representing Far East Kentucky. So we're going to talk about a subject matter that where humankind has been practicing animal husbandry for thousands of years with their equine partners, and that's equine dentistry. And I've told my guests that we've got some pretty good horsemen on this panel and people who certainly are familiar with the subject matter. But and as previously mentioned, we worked really hard on the Veterinary Modernization Act. Some of those folks are here, and you'll be hearing from them. But this was a component that did need extra attention, and we're trying to get the stakeholders together and come up with a common sense solution that doesn't prejudice any sector, from high-end race horses to the trail horse, or even the wild herds that are running in East and West Kentucky, because they need and get these services too. So my job is to protect the horse and to make health care accessible and rational. And I've owned a few myself in the day, and I've never had a professional do my work unless there's a problem, and then the people who float my horse's teeth, or my trainers, or myself, will contact a veterinarian. So this is an animal husbandry issue with me, and at this time we've got all these folks here for questions and participation, and I'm gonna I think Wayne has a presentation for y'all.
So thank you for having me, Committee Chair, and I helped with a lot of the legislative work in Texas, and so this environment makes me very nervous still. So forgive me if I am, but I was asked to kind of give maybe my sales pitch or an introduction of absolutely why horses need equine dentistry. So I'm going to go through that process with you. If you would sit back, saddle up, enjoy the ride. Maybe you'll at least get to enjoy today a little bit something new. About 4,000 years ago, we have that evidence of domesticated horses. 2,000 years ago is when equine dentistry actually started. They saw that on on the caves and stuff. So our business, our industry actually is like 4,000 years old at its latest date. And also another kind of intriguing thing is there was books written about our profession. The Simons of Athens, and Aristotle, which is kind of intriguing to me, wrote about us in 430 and 333 BC. So it's actually older than the Old Testament of our Bible, which is kind of a weird thing to look at. This is evidence that shows that there was bitware and stuff, and so this is in 4000 BC. Just a little bit of history I'd like to give to you. So 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, our business started. A couple of other facts that we have: vet school started in Lyon, France in 1762, and then here in the youthful United States in 1903. That was about the first time that at Iowa State that we had a 4-year vet school. So in 1903, about 120 years ago, vet school started. So our industry goes further past that, just kind of, and it's not something that we strictly promote the networking with veterinarians, and we'll get to that later in this little bit, but just wanted to throw that in as a side note. I want to go over reasons why dentistry, and that's the kind of stuff that'll get into some better looking pictures and different things. But the reason that we have dentistry is there's 3 different types of teeth. There's human teeth, which are short, low crowns. They're called bunodont teeth. And that once they are fully developed at whenever they are at 5-6 years old, those teeth never grow any taller any longer. Then you have hypsilodont teeth, which are in rodents, rats, and animals like that. They are ever growing. Hypsodont teeth are ever erupting. So 2 years after they get that tooth, like if you get 2 baby teeth in, as soon as 2 years after that, those teeth are fully developed and they never grow anymore. So they're about 3.5 inches in length, and from that point on, they wear down, and then you end up with a very small tooth after that tooth. So a 4-year-old would have a tooth like this, and it makes up the entire jaw of that horse. And then as that tooth erupts down and it's worn away, then we get to the horse that has very, very little tooth left. You can see these in these x-rays and different things you can see. If you look at a horse's head, you don't realize at a young age that their entire skull is full of teeth, and it is. Where that comes into our problem is as these teeth erupt, we brought these horses in from nature, and in a natural environment when horses are grazing and in certain places, they were designed to maintain their own teeth. When we bring them into our environment and we feed them in stalls and with their head in different positions, different types of feed, then their teeth grow erratically, very similar to their feet. I know Committee Chair Cook said he dealt with farrier stuff in their feet. And so if you bring them in a sandy, their feet do not wear normal or wear the right way at all. They actually mushroom out. And I had a picture on my phone that I should have inserted. Their teeth go their feet go crazy. Their teeth do exactly the same thing. So because we bring them into our environment from outside of their natural environment, we owe them a duty to maintain their teeth for them because they can't naturally do that themselves. This is a picture of the teeth in the back of the mouth as they sit. What would happen is, we'll get back to this picture. So this picture, where'd my mouse go? Horses are designed to chew laterally. So they grind their feed. We mash our feed together. So they have their jaw pattern would go down, out, and back to center, and they grind it back to center. When we feed them the type of really soft feeds that we feed them, they have to chew vertically to get that job done. And this portion, the inside portion of the lowers and the outside portion of the uppers do not get worn properly, and they develop these enamel knife blades, basically razor blades that come down through the sides of their teeth. So they're not wearing them naturally because of the type of feed that they're chewing. Another thing, this would show lacerations in the cheek. So these knife blades, this is the enamel portion. And just in the natural, like when you bring a horse in from nature, you very seldom see this happen in nature. But when you bring them in, they chew with cuts in their cheeks. Is it like if you guys had braces back when you were younger? Those are the types of lacerations that these horses receive. You can see that's a pretty devastating laceration, and that's normal everyday stuff that we see because of horses not receiving regular dental care that would need it, and it's all because we brought them in from their natural environment into our world. The incisors are the same. The lower jaw actually, if you extend your neck, your jaw actually slides backwards. If you tuck your chin, your jaw slides forward. So when we receive a horse eating with his head up, the lower jaw is not in the position that it would normally be. It would be slid backwards. And so the teeth begin to develop a hook in the front, and it physically blocks that lower jaw and locks it in backwards. That hurts in performance, that hurts in mastication, which is chewing. It hurts in all sorts of things. So then you begin to see where this jaw here is stuck backwards, the front teeth grow over the front. And then again, now that jaw is completely locked. And the horse can't self-correct that. That's something that it would take someone, a practitioner, to come in there and be able to correct that. As an industry, what we did is we studied a bunch of wild horses, and we found out the correct table angles of these things and how these mouths should look. And then our goal as an industry is to set these horses back to how they naturally were, and then teach people to feed them in the correct position, head position, and the right types of feeds that go along with the great feeds that we have, and allow these horses to self-maintain. So that's our goal as an industry, and that's how we got educated. You can see, for instance, in this particular horse here, and I actually started some work, but this was about a 15-year-old horse, and the way that he chewed, he had developed that problem that I talked about. He had his lower jaw stuck in the back position, the upper tooth wasn't worn properly. Every time this horse took a bite of feed, he had to chew a hole in his jaw that went all the way down to the bone. You could fit a golf ball inside that hole.
I very much appreciate your passion, and I'm probably one of the few people on the committee who would like to sit here and hear all this. But I think you've very well established the need.
Okay, all right. Let's rock and roll.
So let's move to I think Senator Sickles ready for me to say get to the point. So
okay. So I'll try to get through this. Veterinary currently falls under veterinary medicine in Kentucky. There is a large animal shortage. I will let someone else speak on that since I'm not from Kentucky. But hearing the coffee table talk this morning, there's quite a shortage in a lot of counties. the lack of veterinary equine dentistry training in the veterinary curriculum. Speaking to veterinarians, it's not in a lot of the curriculum that they have, but we want to absolutely work with veterinarians, and I would like to speak on that if I get time. Perform dental evaluations. I think my lecture is way too long. So the time it takes to do this is one problem with the veterinarians. Basically, if we set this thing aside, we want to be the front lines for the veterinarians. If we have a veterinarian shortage, veterinarians really honestly don't, like if someone brings in 5 horses to be worked on, it takes hours to do that, and they have a trailer line out the back. We want to be the front lines. We are the front lines in a lot of states where we are well educated, we're trained, we have certifications to where we recognize problems, and then we bring these problems to the veterinarians. So the veterinarians do the doctor type work. We do the x-rays, the extractions, and we are the front lines that help to control the issues that we tried to speak about earlier.
Mr. Chairman, and yes, and I think those of us who serve on many committees here and probably heard a lot of us talk about, there is a shortage. Just this issue of Quarter Horse News says the equine veterinarian shortage isn't coming, it's already here. That's nationally, folks. We're not the only state grappling with this, despite our work with other university vet schools and the way we are looking to incent and the needs. And once again, I think our demographic is very important here. Large animal veterinarians in my neck of the woods, we've got some great ones. They're kind of busy. And you know, rural practice doesn't always lend itself to a practice in Woodford County or a practice in even Bourbon County sometimes. And we've got to make policy that protects my ability as an owner to do what I want to with that horse to the extent of good welfare standards, good husbandry standards, and protect that horse. And I think people have done that for hundreds of years, especially here in Kentucky and especially East Kentucky. So, I mean, I think we look at sort of like the previous presentation, where are the ones that are, where is the access? And then we've got to also make policy to serve areas that don't have enough large animal veterinarians, or even guys like this that have gone and gotten certifications and had education. There's generational experts in this stuff working in the hollers of East Kentucky that I've utilized myself. I mean, this is something that, and like any other husbandry practice, then you call a veterinarian if there's something remarkable. That's what these folks do as well. And we've got their clients here, we've got them here, and I want to work with you, Mr. Chairman, and the stakeholders, the veterinarians and the owners to become a system. And we're not the only state that's done this. Wayne's worked in Utah and worked in other states, Texas. And so we've got some models floating around that we're looking at to try to tailor a solution for the diverse demographic here in Kentucky, and to protect our horses and to provide owners some ability to do that without being criminalized. So that's why I'm here, and we've got all these folks here for questions.
Let's before we switch off, we've got 2 questions, so let's hit those. Representative Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, you mentioned that you handle as much of this stuff on the front end as you can, and then you call in when there's a problem. Could you tell us how often you floss your horses?
Well, it depends on, I got a diva. I got a little one that's a diva, and he probably would go for that.
Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senator. We actually own one horse, which is enough, and she had her teeth cleaned last week. And we did sedation with her because she's an anxious horse. And my understanding is that many of the horses have sedation for accurate, good dentistry, and that only a veterinarian or the owner can use sedation. So does that play into your conversations at all?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. So how we do that in Oklahoma and Texas is we absolutely keep that relationship with a veterinarian. So the horse and the horse owner go through the veterinarian, get the prescribed medication, and we either do it at the vet clinic or they bring that sedation and the administration is done. So we keep that relationship with the sedations and the veterinarian. We're not imposing on that relationship. All we're asking is for legality for the procedure.
And if I could add to that, having a relationship with the vet and being able to get one to come when you need one is two separate different things. But the one thing the Veterinary Modernization Act did was provide a telehealth option. And that telehealth option is going to be very beneficial in resolving some of those issues.
So may I ask one quick follow-up? So if that's the case, legally they're not allowed, you're asking for a change to allow them to actually give the sedation if they want to, or not at all?
In the states that we become legal to do the procedure, we don't touch the sedation laws. The sedation laws remain the same. The drug policies remain the same.
Remain the same.
We're just looking for the legality of the procedure.
Okay. I have some more questions on that, but I'll let them go. Thank you.
Let me follow up before we change and let the next group come up and speak. How many are there dental schools in Kentucky, or what are the dental schools around here? Do we know that?
There's one that's based in Virginia over the school. I would say it rotates between some different states. There's one in Texas and there's one in Idaho.
Okay. And then and I'll ask Texas specifically since you're from Texas. What's Texas done? Is there licensing? So are your equine dentists licensed? Are they not licensed? Is there a board? Do they have to pass a test? Like what does that kind of look like in Texas?
So in Texas, we did go through, it's the only state that goes through the licensing procedure. So I have a Texas Vet Med license, same as a veterinary. So it takes certification. So they certify through an association, and then we take a jurisprudence examination with the state, and then we are regulated by the Texas Vet Board. And I have a Texas Vet Board license. Continuing ed, they require, so we renew our license, turn in our continuing ed every year. Yes, sir.
Veterinarian or?
So we are generally supervised. So when we initiate our license, we get generally supervised by two. So we have three types of supervision: immediate, general, and direct. And we are generally supervised. So if we have a problem, we're required to keep our charting, and we take that chart and that to our general supervision vet. So that's the type of supervision that we have in Texas.
So is there a equine dental board, state board?
There's three equine dentists on a committee that sit underneath the vet board, that are within the vet board. So we have a committee sit within. So the vet board has access to this committee of three.
Senator Webb, is that kind of something like, what's your vision as you're forming this?
Well, that's why we're here today, to bring the subject up. I've got several states, models, if you will. I'm still kind of dissecting those. And of course, I still won't need to talk to the vet board. We had some mild conversations last year. We were going to come back to this. So I haven't discussed it with them, but I wanted the committee, and I think the chairman did, to start to be aware of the issue and that we were working on it. And if anybody's got any input from their people, feel free, because that's kind of why I like to practice law in this, but bring everybody together and get as much as resolved as we can before we move forward for even a bill draft. And that's what I've told these guys. So they're being patient, and we are too.
Really, really appreciate you coming here, especially coming all the way up from Texas, and really appreciate that. And since there's several of them coming, if you guys step aside, and Michelle, Shane, if you guys, I don't know who's coming up, but
thank you.
Let you all come up. And thank you, sir. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Everybody will remember Michelle and Dr. Park from last year with the Practice Act. If you could please introduce yourself for the record, and give you guys a couple minutes here.
Dr. John Park, equine veterinarian and board member of the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners.
Michelle Shane, Executive Director with the board. Thank you for having us here today. I just wanted to, can you hear me okay? Great. I wanted to also thank Senator Webb for bringing this issue back up before the committee. We did work with her on House Bill 167 that just passed here in 2023. It was a modernization of our Veterinary Medicine Practice Act, and it did affirm that equine dentistry, with a lot of other practices, fall within the scope of practice of veterinary medicine. As Representative Cook mentioned, we did work on an animal allied health professional portion that is included in this modernization that gives us a framework to carve out certain professions, such as animal chiropractic, which did make it into the bill, to allow crossover work in professions. Equine dentistry is one that we looked at as well, and we had formed a coalition to support that. That the board would oversee licensure, and those in the community of veterinary medicine also supported something like 85% to see board have oversight. Under this profession, that framework, or the Allied Animal Health Professional permit, that framework now exists, and we'd be delighted to work with Senator Webb and this group to bring that on board and make that happen so that individuals who are now practicing in Kentucky can do so legally. We want to bring that lay profession under the umbrella of public protection by providing that legal path to work. That being said, there are some concerns that we still need to work out. Protection of the horse and the public should be at the forefront. There needs to be an avenue for recourse when adverse reactions and problems exist beyond the scope of the equine dentists. And of biggest import and concern right now to veterinarians too is the access to drugs. As you all know and have probably heard, xylazine, a veterinary drug primarily used in horses, is looking to be scheduled at the federal level. So access and transport of those drugs is a critical component of this issue. And I would like to turn it over to Dr. Park.
Thank you, Michelle. She's integral in the function of the board and the modernization of the Practice Act. I just wanted to say thank you to all you for our passage of the Practice Act and allowing us to come before you last year. Special thanks to Representative Cook and Senator Howell and Senator Webb. You were all instrumental in helping us, and we really appreciate that. As Michelle stated, the Board of Examiners, the KBVE, has a framework for the allied health professional, as we were terming it, and we want to be cooperative and try to solve this issue. There's a lot of issues to it, and I don't know if I'm smart enough to solve them all, but we've got a lot of great minds, and I think we need to come together and try to come up with solutions. And as Michelle stated about, and I think Senator Bledsoe stated, sedation is one of the big issues and questions. To do a proper oral exam on a horse, it needs to be sedated, and that's one of the keys. Is it's not just about floating or grinding teeth. It's about a good oral exam and a good diagnosis of any issues that are beyond grinding the points down. And my education was 8 years of 4 years undergrad and 4 years of professional school, and I'm as a veterinarian role and as a member of the Kentucky Board of Veterinary Examiners, the number one most forefront is the horse and the animal, the well-being, the health. The number two is the person that's attached to it, and as a board member, it's about protection of the animal and protection of the citizens' rights, and as a practicing veterinarian, it's about the health of the animal. So there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions to be raised. But as a licensed veterinarian in the state of Kentucky, I can't go into West Virginia and float a horse's teeth, or I'm subject to disciplinary action because I would need to be licensed in Virginia or West Virginia or Ohio or Tennessee, any surrounding state. And so there needs to be some regulation. There needs to be some accountability. And the old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, I think that there's got to be some balance to it and some fairness, and above all, protect the horse.
I'd like to also finally point out that with us in the audience today, members of the Kentucky Veterinary Medical Association, their executive director, Deborah Hamelback, Dr. Philip Prater, Dr. Ernie Martinez, another equine vet, and Dr. Jim Weber as well.
Well, just want to say thank you all very much. I think there's a lot that two groups agree on, and I think that'd be a good foundation to work forward and approach where we need to go with this. So thank you, everyone. Any other questions from the committee? We have one. Senator Howe. Do you have a question, sir?
I think that they touched on most of mine. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. All right.
Thank you.
Last, definitely. Oh, and I'm sorry, we had one person, Rachel Ball. You came all the way from Paint Lick. Did you have anything you want to say? You good?
I think it's all covered.
Thank you for being here. All right. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Mr. Mike Stone. Sir, if you'll come forward and introduce yourself for the record. Look forward to your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mike Stone. I'm Executive Director of the Kentucky Council on Problem Gambling. How's that? Okay, I'm sorry. Mike Stone, Executive Director, Kentucky Council on Problem Gambling. Co-Chairman Cook and Chickle, and members of the committee. I am thankful for the opportunity to address the committee today on behalf of the council, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to increase awareness of problem gambling, promote prevention and research, and advocate for the availability of treatment. Many of the committee is familiar with the council and its effort to provide objective information about problem and addicted gambling. The first and foremost message I wish to convey on behalf of the council is gratitude for the General Assembly, including language in House Bill 551, to establish a publicly funded problem and addicted gambling awareness, education, prevention, and treatment program in Kentucky. The council has advocated for such a program for more than 20 years. Kentucky now joins 42 other states and districts, as well as the rest of the world, in recognizing disordered gambling is a real public health issue. It is defined as an addictive disorder in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the Mental Disorders, 5th edition. Again, thank you. A publicly funded program to address problem and addicted gambling is needed. Research by academics such as John Grant at the University of Chicago, Timothy Fong at UCLA, and Howard Schaefer at Harvard University document the addiction. The latest statistics from the survey firm Ipsos showed that 78% of Kentucky adults gambled over the past year. That is more than 2.5 million Kentucky citizens. Research conducted by Council Board member Scott Hunt, who is Associate Dean of the College of Justice, Safety, and Military Science at Eastern Kentucky University, revealed as many as 165,000 Kentucky adults exhibit problem and gambling traits, and as many as 64,000 have a gambling addiction. Using a median of $9,000 that academic research indicates is the average annual social cost per addicted gambler, Kentucky's addicted gamblers cost $576 million. Additionally, the Kentucky Incentives for Prevention survey conducted by Reach of Louisville of 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade public school students showed more than 26% of high school seniors gambled for money or possessions during their lifetimes. The KIP survey indicated almost 2% of the more than 100,000 respondents reported gambling led to financial problems or problems with family, work, school, or personal life, which are criteria for gambling addiction. The council supports the 1-800-GAMBLER helpline, which is operated from River Valley Behavioral Health in Owensboro. Helpline calls and texts increased from 294 in 2018 to 709 in 2022. Through the first 6 months of 2023, calls are averaging more than 2 per day. In Kentucky, a stigma still is attached to problem and addicted gambling. People are fearful of self-identifying due to anticipated derision and embarrassment. This is why gambling addiction is in part viewed as a hidden addiction. State recognition will drive public awareness and increase messaging by the gambling industry. The example of other states is this will increase the demand for services to help individuals recover from the addiction and others to recognize the warning signs and avoid problems. It is a false narrative that awareness of problem and addicted gambling and providing services for problem and addicted gamblers will decrease gambling participation, thus harming the gambling businesses and lowering the revenue accruing to the state. That has not happened in any other jurisdiction. Kentucky gambling businesses already are working to raise awareness. Almost all are council dues-paying members supporting awareness efforts. Gambling enterprises like Caesars, which will operate the new sports book at the Red Mile, have detailed gambling policies, including a self-exclusion policy that bans those on the list from going to any Caesars property. Indiana and Ohio have similar statewide self-exclusion systems. Such a program is recommended for Kentucky. The council already has met with representatives of the Department of Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities to offer help in developing the regulations to implement the problem gambling program. The council will not administer nor be a part of program oversight. That is the role for a public agency. Fortunately, Kentucky can adapt the many best practice initiatives from the other states and countries as it forms its problem and addicted gambling program. The council appreciates the department's work in developing the emergency regulations for the Kentucky Problem Gambling Assistance Account that were announced last week. The council does have some concerns. One is diversion of resources to other addiction prevention and treatment programs. House Bill 551 did not specify that the funds raised are solely to address gambling problems and addictions. Clearly, that was the General Assembly's intent, but history from other states shows funds purportedly earmarked for problem gambling services were diverted to other uses. The council asked for General Assembly oversight on this issue. The council has not completed a detailed review of the emergency regulations, but notes its focus clearly is on problem gambling services. A second is rolling out problem and addicted gambling services before the awareness, education, prevention, and treatment infrastructure is ready for the influx of individuals seeking services. The first steps must include training of staff to perform the services. The council has volunteered to use its accrued grants and donations to pay for a week-long training of counselors before the public program's implementation. They then could seek certification as gambling counselors by the International Gambling Counselor Certification Board. The last concern is cost. House Bill 551 is projected to raise $500,000 for problem and addicted gambling services. Research provided by the National Association of Administrators of Disordered Gambling Services reports the average expenditure on problem and addicted gambling services among the 42 states and jurisdictions with publicly funded programs is 28 cents per capita. Using U.S. Census Bureau data, that computes to $1.2 million for Kentucky. The council stands by the total per capita number because of the evidence of services that is needed to be directed toward youth. While the funds realized from House Bill 551 are significant and will let Kentucky build a program, the example of other states is the demand for services soon will eclipse the funds available. If and when additional funding is directed to the program, the council reiterates its long-held advocacy that all legally sanctioned gambling in Kentucky share in the cost of the program. Gambling is an equal opportunity addiction. Each gambling entity contributes to the problem and should share the cost. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity and for your efforts to address this issue, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stone, and really appreciate you being here, speaking on this. You know, we put $500,000 into that with that bill last year, as you stated. It's very important that this group is aware of it, and we manage that properly. Representative Meredith, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to clarify a couple of things. One, and Mike, thanks for being here. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you on this. I think if you look at the emergency regulations that the Horse Racing Commission have promulgated so far, there is a self-exclusion language in that regulation, and so that will be a statewide program in Kentucky under their regulations. that have been out in the E-regs and the permanent regs that they're looking towards as well. I certainly agree with you that the intent in the bill was to reserve that money specifically for problem gaming, except for just the administrative cost of the cabinet managing the program. And so we will certainly be overseeing that. And I also appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Cook, to continue to work with you on finding other funds to go into that from the other forms of gaming that exist in the state.
Yes, sir. Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Mike. Thanks for being here. Good to see you again. And as you know, I've been a huge advocate for two things in this state: expanded gaming, but also a addicted gaming program. It's something that's missing in this state, and I was really happy we were able to put that language in 551 last session. I also filed a bill last session. Toward the end of the session, House Bill 486, and this particular bill, I knew it wasn't going to move. It was designed to be an introductory discussion piece, and it talked about putting a problem gambling program in place. It kind of mimics the state of Virginia. To my colleagues, you have a chance to look at that, and I picked Virginia simply because it's an HHR state. It's a border state. I think it shows some of the things that they are doing, and again, it was an introductory discussion piece, hopefully that we can use moving forward, just showing what one state is doing. My question, Mike, is how much have you had a chance personally, as well as other members in the council, to look at what the individual state programs are that are out there right now? And is there any particular state that's having more success than others that we might look at?
There are several that have advanced programs, as well as our neighbor to the north, Canada, has very evolved best practices for addressing problem and addicted gambling. Within the states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Oregon, Washington State, Oklahoma, all have established programs with strong best practice activities.
Appreciate that answer, and if I could just, Mr. Chair, just make one very quick comment. It's just, I hope people understand that this is a real thing. There's a community cost to this. We could argue till we're blue in the face whether it's 1%, 2%, 5%, or whatever. There's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of casinos. Most of the casino states around this country embrace this type of program because, let's face it, and this problem exists, and these individuals that are more prone to addiction are coming into their facilities. It's kind of a black eye on the activity. So it's very common for states to have funds set aside out of tax dollars to fund these services, not only from a treatment standpoint, but from a education and prevention standpoint. So please keep moving toward this direction. I'll do anything I can to help out anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gentry. Anyone else? If not, motion to adjourn.